Asher Fredman is the director of the Misgav Institute for National Security. Welcome, Asher. First of all, let's start with immediate reactions. As Israelis, is Trump's victory good or bad for Israel at this very critical time?
Trump's victory creates the potential for restarting the momentum on the Abraham Accords, for joint Israeli-American action on Iran, returning the approach of maximum sanctions, for deepening cooperation in a whole host of issues, and for adopting new paradigms on the Palestinian issue as well. Now, we still don't know exactly what we'll see in the second Trump presidency, but the potential is there for a significant change and for significant new opportunities in the Israel-U.S. alliance.
There is, however, an element of unpredictability with Donald Trump, isn't there? And we are going on his first term as president. We don't know if he will have similar policies in his second term. Just on the issue of wars and ceasefires, I mean, he has said himself he wants to stop wars rather than start them. He wants to end the destruction, as he put it, in Lebanon. And he's actually said he wants to end the war in Lebanon before his inauguration. I mean, is there a risk that he could force settlements on Israel?
He has made all those statements. Partly we have to wait to see who are the people who are going to be around the president, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor. Those are all critical roles. And there are some very, very good people who are likely candidates for some of those roles. I think the message that Israel has to send is that the way to end wars is to defeat our enemies, defeat the terrorists, defeat the radical regimes. If we end the war and leave the terrorists in power, then we're going to have recurring wars over the coming years. So that's not going to lead to any kind of permanent quiet. The only way to lead to sort of more permanent peace and quiet is by achieving victory and achieving the war aims. One thing that we are likely to see, this is very important, is that the threat of the Biden administration to withhold critical arms from Israel, which has been an important consideration in Israel's military planning, is unlikely to be the case in the case of a Trump administration.
Asher, you wanted to respond.
Eric mentioned the Vice President Vance. Vice President-elect Vance gave a very important speech where he explained that while he has reservations regarding aid to Ukraine, he's quite supportive of aid and American support to Israel. What he said was that was very important was that America empower Israel and its allies to defend themselves, to empower them. And I think that going forward, if we're looking at the possibility of a Middle East security architecture where Israel works with its Middle East allies and the United States to defend itself and for the countries of the region to defend themselves against the threat, that could be a very positive development.
Asher, your thoughts on Hezbollah? Very much still a threat.
Well, to date, the IDF has been striking Hezbollah leaders and infrastructure in Beirut and other parts of Lebanon and carrying out a very limited ground operation, 2 or 3 kilometers from the border. As you know, I took part in that as well as a member of the reserve forces. While those operations have been successful in their goals of destroying Hezbollah infrastructure, we found quite a lot of weapons and missiles. That is not a sufficient amount of pressure to get Hezbollah to agree to any kind of deal, in my view, that will allow the residents of the north to return to their homes safely. The threat of the anti-tank missiles, which have a 10-kilometer range, is still quite there. We see still their capabilities. In order to bring Hezbollah to the point where we'll agree to a deal that will allow the residents of Avivim and Shlomi and Hanita and all the other towns to return to their homes, in my view, we're going to need to expand both the airstrikes, and that goes towards the American support, the American weaponry, and that will hopefully change for the better, and expand the ground operation to approximately 10 kilometers to push Hezbollah back, and then, as Yaakov said, to enforce that Hezbollah-free zone afterwards.
So you think diplomatic efforts have reached an end simply because we have a lame duck president in the White House now as well?
I think that if and when Israel expends that kind of pressure on Lebanon and on Hezbollah, a diplomatic agreement will be possible. I don't see the U.S. successfully pushing for it in the current conditions. I think first Israel has to increase the military pressure with U.S. backing, and then some kind of diplomatic deal becomes possible.
So we could be looking at many more months, do you think, of fighting in Lebanon?
I do think so. Obviously, the weather plays a part in it. The rain, my assessment, we will see this campaign going on at least into the spring, summer of the coming year.
All right, okay, both of you. And I guess when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Asher, the big difference between the Republicans and the Democrats has been described as the Democrats think that creating a Palestinian state will bring about peace in the region, whereas the Republicans see the Abraham Accords and normalization and acceptance of Israel in the region as the way forward.
Exactly. And under President Trump's first term, we saw 4 historic peace and normalization agreements between Israel and Arab states. And under President Biden, the fact is we saw 0. Now, President Trump coming in with his approach I think there is a real chance both for additional bilateral agreements. Saudi Arabia is certainly the crown jewel, but there may be other countries that we should approach first. Also for advancing paradigm-shifting multilateral initiatives, whether it's the India, Middle East, Europe trade corridor, which could revolutionize global trade and be an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, whether it's a Middle East security architecture or defense alliance, which would allow the countries of the region to cooperate in unprecedented ways and counter the threats from Iran and from Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations. So there's tremendous potential, and if we move forward in all of those avenues, I think the conditions could be created for integrating the Palestinians into that future of stability and prosperity and lasting peace. President Trump can place crushing economic sanctions on Iran's energy sector, its oil sales to China, on its financial sector, on its military-industrial complex, the same ones that are selling the drones, the UAVs, to Ukraine. And that could be a way of avoiding an all-out war, but putting real crushing pressure on Iran that could eventually force it, together with a credible military threat, force it to change its ways.
All right.